The Elder Scrolls 6 is cooked. Bethesda doesn't make good games anymore. The Elder Scrolls 6 is cooked. My favorite writers no longer work at Bethesda. The Elder Scrolls 6 is cooked. A guy on the internet told me that it's cooked. Really? Who was it? I don't think you know him. Tess 6 is cooked. The developers for it dyed their hair. How can they be expected to make a good Elder Scrolls game when they can't even dye their hair properly? Just look at those roots. Atrocious. Girl, that ain't no hair dye. That's a hair to dye. The eldest Sausage Roll 6 is cooked. They hired a writer that worked on a bad game. Wait, that might actually be a valid reason though. Tess, what number was it? 6. The Elder Scrolls 6 is cooked on a medium heat grill for 5 hours over cherry wood or oak wood if you prefer. Flip and glaze with your favorite barbecue sauce halfway through for optimal results. Best served with rice or potato mash. So what's going on? In case you are out of the loop, recently Bethesda hired a new senior quest designer whose previous work experience includes games like Anthem, Mass Effect Andromeda, and the infamous Dragon Age Veilguard. This has significantly increased anxieties over the quality of storytelling we can expect from the Elder Scrolls 6, especially after fan favorite game designer and writer Kurt Coleman, who has worked on Tess since Daggerfall, stopped working at Bethesda 2 years ago. Fears were especially compounded after another fan favorite writer hinted that Kurt was asked to leave. All of this coming right after the launch of Starfield, as well as the recent trend of the video games industry to butcher beloved titles, has left many people pessimistic, and the sentiment in the community is the pre-stated The Elder Scrolls 6 is cooked. I want to give my opinion on all of this. Usually I don't, but this time I feel like I have something to say that is actually worth saying. But before that, I want to let everyone know about where I'm coming from. My favorite parts of Tess lore are specifically the weird parts. Vivek, Mankar Cameron, Sothasil, Lorcan, Talos, and many, many more. My favorite Elder Scrolls game will always be Skyrim. Gameplay wise, it might be a drastic simplification, but for me at least, it hits the story spot just right, where there is a lot of simple storytelling for beginners and people who enjoy the simpler stuff, and then there's also characters like Parthenax, Hermeus Mora and his black books, and the Greybeards for people who enjoy the weirder stuff, not to mention concepts such as the Eye of Magnus and the Altmeri Dominion. I think that many characters in Skyrim are dumb, but in general, I think that Skyrim was the perfect blend. So, with my biases out of the way, and keeping in mind all I have just said about the things currently happening at Bethesda, what am I expecting from the Elder Scrolls 6? I think, personally, that Tess 6 will be a fine game. Just that though. You know what Tess 6 will be? Slightly salted chips. You know what Tess 6 will be? Tess 6 will be plain sugary cereal. Let me give you my observations and note that all of this is just speculation, which is an ancient custom here on the internet. I'll be more than happy to be proven wrong if the game turns out to be as good, if not better than Skyrim. First of all, let me examine the statement that the writing at Bethesda has gone downhill. It can be said that this statement is easily verifiable, especially after the release of Starfield and the departure of a lot of senior talent over the years, and not to mention the recent hiring. Well, there are two comments I want to make about this statement, about how it relates to Tess 6. First, the writer they just hired might have worked on some bad games like Dragon Age Veilguard, but he has also worked on some pretty good games like Bioshock Infinite, the original Mass Effect trilogy, and on Telltale's Game of Thrones. The guy can write. That much is obvious. I think it would be silly to look at one game a person was a writer for and then solely blame him for the failure of that one game without knowing how much he contributed to the negative aspects of that game. From his CV, it doesn't seem like he worked on any of the bad stuff, genuinely. And moreover, As far as I'm aware, the stuff he lists in his writings are pretty good. Also, I've heard it being said, but I can't confirm this, that he left BioWare before Veilguard was released. Interesting. So no, I am not sold on the idea that Bethesda just hired a bad writer or a bad quest designer. Moreover, isn't this what we wanted from Bethesda? To hire new talent? And talent for what exactly? If we are to assume that he is working on Test 6, which has never been stated at all, but assuming, what exactly will he be writing? This is my second point. All of the provinces of Tamriel have been written already. Assuming that Test 6 takes place in Hammerfell and or Daggerfall, the Yokuran lore and the Pantheon was written 2 decades ago, and Daggerfall's lore as a province was written about a quarter of a century ago at this point. Other writers, like Michael Kirkbride, left an entire bucket list full of ideas for the next Elder Scrolls: Third Akavir Invasion, Second Great War, Sword Saints, another Hunding. All of these things have already been written. Even possible DLC content has been provided, such as the Eye of Argonia. Oh, Eye of Argonia. It just wasn't meant to be, was it? They have forgotten about you, Eye of Argonia, but I haven't. I never will. The problem with Starfield is that they had to write a bunch of new stuff from scratch. In the Elder Scrolls, everything has already been written, except the newest plot. I think that we as consumers have become very pessimistic, and for good reason. Flop after flop after flop. The wallet can only be drained so many times before it gets shut for good. I feel like this pessimistic attitude combined with, and I will say this diplomatically, actually, you know what? Fuck that. I'm not gonna say this diplomatically. A lot of the commentary around this topic has been absolute dogshit. Barely anyone mentioned the writer's full CV. In the entire CV, it doesn't mention Test 6. People just assume that he would work on that because he now works at Bethesda, as if Bethesda doesn't make any other games. Most videos call the guy the Bioshock or the Veilguard writer when he has worked on many other projects. In fact, Veilguard wasn't even his latest project. Moreover, he's not even going to be the lead writer. That job will most likely fall upon Emil Pegliarulo, with Tor Howard right beside him. I'm making a bigger video on Pegliarulo. When it comes to Elder Scrolls, he's mediocre to good. Please, everyone stay calm. I'm talking about Tess here, not Fallout. That is an entirely different beast. Emil Pegliarulo has written The Dark Brotherhood, the Thum Language, and the Murder Mystery Quest for Windhelm. That marks him, to me at least, as a good writer, at least for Elder Scrolls. Again, Fallout is a different story. Here's the deal though, he wasn't the one to come up with the Dark Brotherhood or the Thum. Other people came up with those concepts. That's the point. Even if the writers are as bad as the most pessimistic actors claim that they are, I feel like the lore can carry even the worst writing and steer it towards an at least decent direction. However, viewer, I'm not here to dismiss your concerns as nothing but doomer talk or irrational thinking. There are failure scenarios that we have to consider. 2 in particular, dismissing original lore or twisting it so much and so badly that it becomes unrecognizable. On the topic of dismissing the original lore, this is the Fallout scenario, where old characters change identities, the rules of the world get rewritten, the entire theme changes, and factions are altered and now exist in places that they shouldn't be. If they do this, let me tell you, if they do this, if they go, you know what, the Yokuran Pantheon was good and all, but what if we rework the entire thing just so it can be more familiar to other mainstream fictional themes like the Egyptian pantheon? Or hey, sword singing is good and all, but what if we reworked it to the point that it completely contradicts existing lore around the very concept of sword singing? I want to make something clear. There will be retcons. Every test game from Morrowind onward has had retcons. Some more so than others, but they're still there. The issue isn't the inconsistencies themselves per se, it is why they happen. People might forgive a mistake or something done to make the developer's life easier. Such was the case with levitation and teleportation magic, though I still haven't forgiven them for taking away levitation just yet, but the argument still stands. The in-game reason given for these things being taken away is dogshit, but people didn't make a fuss about it, because people will understand when lore makes gaming development unbearable. People will even cherish new additions that expand retcon or make previous material better. People will not forgive twisting things around, inserting obnoxious gimmick characters, flat out contradictions, and reducing the Lord of Madness to a quirky cheese addict. In the original concept, Thumbs were literally able to destroy villages with only a whisper. Izmirs were able to uplift settlements from the ground. How do you balance the last Dragonborn around that idea? You have to rework it. So do I think that they will do any one of those two things and ruin everything? No. No, not really. I don't think that they are that bad, if bad is the word to describe them at all when it comes to Elder Scrolls lore. I guess what I'm trying to say is this: the already existing lore can guide the writers to make at least a decent experience. That being said, I'm not expecting the next Morrowind either. For the same reasons that I don't expect failure, I don't expect a mind-bending experience either. There will be no sixth house, there will be very little to no esoteric lore, and there will be no crazy cultist explaining the previous Kalpa. I'm even gonna take a guess and assume that the Aldmeri Dominion, assuming that they even appear, will be even more dumbed down to elf Nazi status. I kind of doubt that we will see the Adamantine Tower, and I extremely doubt that we will see or hear anything about the Orichalk Tower or its remnants. This can be seen as a sad thing, and for the longest time, for me, it was. But after Ithilien, I realized something. It is better to let a good thing stay good than see it fall apart altogether because someone didn't know how to write a Magna G and then wait for a modder to fix it. Which is the unique thing about test lore. Even if all else fails, at least the modders can pick up the slack. I played the Saint's Corpse quest for Vigilant recently. Vigilant, for those of you that don't know, is a massive Skyrim mod. I will remember that one quest made by a modder for free. More than 90% of the quests in Skyrim. Is this tactic of not caring about the actual game and paying more attention to the mods gonna work out for everyone? Of course not. Are there worse and best case scenarios than what I just stated? Yes. It's too early to tell, which is part of my point. Listen, can we get some music here? What I'm trying to say is, we can calm down, stop analyzing the developer's hairstyle to decipher if gender will be replaced with body types in the character creation menu of Test 6. I think it will, if that's the only change they want to make. If the game turns out to be good and they decide to add pronouns in the character creation scene, I'll be like, hell yeah, we're gonna become a magic hermaphrodite with this one. I'm not gonna care. Yeah, I just care about the story. But I have to come down to reality. You know what Test 6 will most likely be? It will be like that one food that your parents make that you would eat as a child but never actually liked, but you would always eat it anyway, like a pasta boil with a tomato sauce straight from a jar, or unsalted fries with a dry piece of meat. If I am proven wrong and the game turns out to be awesome, I'll be more than happy to make a 3-hour video analyzing it and how wrong I was. If it turns out that I was wrong on the opposite side of the spectrum and the game ends up being terrible, I'll make a 9-hour video instead complaining about it. Now that I'm thinking about it, this video seems to be a bit indecisive, isn't it? I said that I don't think that the new hire is a bad thing. The talent that left, however, is a bad thing. But the lore that they created is strong enough to carry the franchise so long as they don't screw things up. Very simple. And also very speculative. And I hate simple and speculative. I want beef. I want violence. I need violence for barely understood reasons. So I will leave you with something a bit more decisive, a bit more opinionated on my behalf, because I am 1000% sure that Bethesda will mess up the modding community for Test 6. They will instantly split the community by introducing paid mods early on. They will brand Test 6 as a modder's paradise, and then they will delay the release of the creation kit, and then they will make the paid mods outrageously overpriced. I am 100% sure that they didn't learn anything from Starfield and the way they tried to shape a modding community in that game. There shall be no more dragons retextured as Thomas the Tank Engine. Ouch. There will be no sequel to Enderal. Ouch. And if the game is bad, you just know they will have the modders fix it only to put the solution as a paid mod for 50 insert local currency. Ouch. Thank you for watching this video. Please disagree with me in the comments as much as you'd like, no matter how hurtful and no matter how painful it might be for me to read it. And above everything else, please Don't panic. I know that the video games industry is in a bit of a rough spot right now. We will get out of this. There is only so many flops you can make before you end up with broken legs. We will be out of this. Good writing, I think, will prevail. The question is, how many casualties will there be before we get out of this? And will The Elder Scrolls 6 be one of those casualties? Best thing we can do for now, as a community, and dare I say, as a fam represent, is to stay reasonable and not judge the quality of a developer based on whether their hair is dyed or not, or on a single bad game they worked on beforehand. Bye bye. Ouch!